if you want to get the perfect 1/4 inch seam on the Pfaff Creative Icon 2, I have a few things that you should try to see what the difference is from using just a basic thread and a universal needle. There are a few things that you can change and see the results immediately. So first off, I am holding your straight stitch throat plate. So since this came with your machine, by having your needle be stabilized perfectly in that single hole instead of the whole zigzag opening, you will get a better straight stitch. Now, once you've perfected that, let's talk about thread. Now, thread thickness does make a difference because when you sew your seam, if you have a thicker thread, remember you got to press open that seam or press it to the side. And if there's kind of a ridge in your thickness of thread, that is going to shrink your finished size of your blocks. So I'm a fan of like the Aurifil thread size 50 or even your embroidery thread. That's actually a great thread to use too, to really minimize the thickness of your seam. Now you do have a 1/4 inch foot that comes with the machine. You might choose to pick up a 1/4 inch foot with a guide if you want. It does have that opening for the IDT, the dual feed, to be engaged. So pull that down in the back here and then that way it will help keep all your fabric pulling in nice and even. Now the last thing I'm going to talk about is needles. And over the years, I have found your quilting needles or your microtex needles are ideal for getting that perfect stitch. They're sharper needles. Those needles, when you crisscross intersections, are going to make and stab the perfect stitch. You know how thick it can be when you get triangle points and intersections from different squares and blocks coming together. It can get a little thick. Remember that straight stitch throat plate is going to help guide the needle, but if your needle is sharper than a universal needle, do you know a universal needle is not really sharp? That's why I'm a fan of quilting needles. Now you can use those smaller sizes like a 75 or 80 or a microtex 70 or 80 with these thinner threads to get the maximum perfection out of your machine. So I hope you'll try all of these techniques because really when you partner everything I just said, you are going to get the most beautiful 1/4 inch stitch. Now, once again, if you're measuring your blocks and they're finishing out still a little bit smaller than you think, you might want to double check your rulers that you're cutting your blocks with. So for example, if your ruler has been used a lot of years, 10 plus years, do you know your ruler is not the original size it was made? It gets less and less every time you use it. Now by a fraction of a hair, but it might be time to treat yourself to some brand new rulers to measure your cuts more accurately. Then when you get to your sewing machine, you will definitely see the difference.